different kinds of security and policies. So I can do that here. Maybe, I need to assign them, I don't know, maybe common folder or something, right? So for the B1 group only, I can give a separate folder. Then B2 group, I can give a separate folder. So if I don't have this kind of group, then I have to like uh, maybe give a folder for both B1 and B2, right? Then it will be common. So if I want to separately give and apply security policies, permissions, so I can divide like this. Then inside here will be the usernames, right? Or your user accounts. So I don't have to, let's say there are 40 or 50 accounts. So I don't have to, apply these permissions to each and every account. Just create an OU like this, put all the accounts inside, and then to the OU I directly give the permission or policies or whatever, right? Then it will apply to all the students which are there. Now let's say someone changed from B1 to B2 or like that, or maybe there might be repeat students who will be, let's say, in the 20 batch. uh, there will be repeat students, right, who was in the 19 batch. So then maybe I need to move them from 19 to 20 then, right? Because, or maybe yeah, I might keep them in the same 19, or I can change them to the other group, right? So then whatever the policies will automatically apply when I change the users group, right? So it's very easy, just apply the permission to the group and then just move the users to the correct group. Right. Authority of an OU can be delegated. So that is what I said. So I can give one person, okay, you manage this OU, right? You manage 19 batch, you manage the 20 batch. Like that, I can, give separate permission to people. Or I can give, okay, you manage the network batch, like that, network stream. So yeah, so when I create OUs like that, I can give permission separately to that group only, right? So I can give the admin permission to that whatever he's managing only, right? I don't have to give him permission to all the users or groups which are there. Right, nesting OUs can build a hierarchical active directory structure. So that is what I did, nesting. So what I did is called nesting, right? Putting a OU inside OU, sub OUs, right? So that mimics the corporate structure for easy object management. Yeah. So let's say in a company, maybe you have like finance department, right? So maybe inside that you might have two or three, smaller departments, right? Maybe payment or whatever is handled by one person or department, right? So those may be inside the finance department, right? So I can create OUs to match that. So as I have done here, this is called nesting. Putting OUs inside OUs, creating sub OUs in this way. So I have gone up to like 3 levels or 4 levels, right? So this is called nesting. Putting OUs inside OUs, right? So yeah, if we take a company, then maybe there might be a, bigger kind of department like let's say finance, right? So maybe inside that maybe sales or production. No, so it is different from each organization. So I can match this to whatever the organization structure. So that way it will be easy to, apply permissions and so on, right? So this is called nesting. What I have done here, creating OUs or folders or groups inside um, folders or groups or OUs. Okay, so that will be easy to manage. All right. So these are created by default. Built-in, it has the different groups created by Windows. Right? I showed you that. It has the default security groups. Then computers. That is where when you add something, when you add computers to a domain, you will see a list there in the computers, right? Then you have, yeah, when a new computer server becomes a domain member. Yeah. Uh, yeah. When you add a computer or server to a domain, so server means you can just add a server. You can, let's say you newly install a server, and you just need to add it to a domain for domain login purposes. So then when you add that server to the domain, that name of the server also will be there in the computers folder, right? So that server is it's not a domain server actually, right? It's just a server which is added to a domain, right? It's just like a computer, uh, but it's a server, right? So it's actually just a domain member. It doesn't have any domain roles, so it's not a domain server. So those also will be there in the computers folder after you add to the domain. Then you have foreign security principles, which are there from other domains, right? So this will contain user accounts from other domains. So that means, let's say now our domain, yeah. So whatever the user accounts we have in the normal folders, so foreign security principles have domain accounts from other domains. User accounts from other domains, right? Uh, so let's say, yeah, there's some, user. So let's say now this user account is in this domain. Now we want to, let's say, make this member this user account of this domain also, right? So we can do that, and those will be actually under this foreign security principles, right? Because actually the default, the account is created under different domain, but he was later added as member of this domain also, right? So since their origin is a different one, so they are added to this foreign security, right? Okay, then we have managed service accounts. So those are actually computer accounts which are already created. So created specifically for services to access domain resources. Yeah. So some default accounts are created by Windows to access domain resources. Then we have the users, which has the administrator and the guest, and some default groups. So I showed you that, right? So we have the administrator and the guest user. You can see by the icon here, it's a single icon. And then the others are default groups shown by this group icon, right? Right. So the core logical structure in this activity contains OUs, OU folder contain objects, and as well as leaf objects. Yeah. So what is this leaf object? Okay. So larger may use multiple domains to separate administration. So this is what I said earlier. If larger companies, if they have sub companies which are under them, right, and separate administration. So one example I told you earlier, these large companies, they buy these smaller companies, right? So, so if the smaller companies are making a big profit, so these larger companies will try to buy them, right? So, in that case, so uh, the company who buys the small other company, right? So the main company might be involved in some other kind of uh, business, right? So example I told you is, let's say it's uh, the the main company is doing some plastics or that kind of thing, right? So it buys another company which, let's say, it's doing electronics. So then, since those are different, and you cannot, there is no common thing between those, right? Then, so so although you buy a company, although the ownership you have, the administration may be done by the currently people who are there already working, right? So to so the the company structure and all those things can be different in that case. So then you will have to create a separate domain to manage, right? So they might need to have separate security and policies. Example. So okay, each domain object has a right. So if you take each domain object, so this, so there's only one domain here. Let's say there are two or three domains. So each of these has a default group policy. I showed you last time, right? So it's a default domain policy. So the default domain policy is there. So you can change as you like, but remember that it will apply to all the objects in the domain, whatever the containers or objects, everything, it will apply, right? Whatever the policies you put at the domain level, right? And separately, you can put policies to these containers or objects also, right? But the default domain policy, so it's actually applied to all the objects in the domain. Yeah, so let me show you that again. Yeah, it's in the group policy management. Right, now can you see in this group policy, first what you see is the forest, right? Yeah, so you can see the forest and the domain have the same name, right? That's because when I created this domain controller, I created the new forest and the domain the same at the same time, right? Yeah, so this is actually the root domain. We call it the root forest domain because this is the very first domain we created in this forest, right? So this is the main domain of this forest. So you can see here, so this forest, that is also an object, right? So it contains domain, site, then group policy modeling, group policy results, right? Yeah, site contains some other folders also. Okay, I think it actually currently doesn't have anything. Okay, right. So if you take these domains, we have currently one domain, and then yeah, it's showing here the domain controller I'm working on, right? Which is currently this one. If we go to this domain, right? So it says this is the baseline domain controller for this domain. So if I click this, Yeah, so when I click this, it will say you have selected a link to group policy object. This is the default group policy object. So if I do any changes in this default group policy, it will apply to all, right? So have to be careful. Um, because this is common to everything. Sometimes if we make a mistake here, then it might apply to all users, right? So sometimes, let's say there are separate staff users and students, right? So usually staff, they have more permissions than students, right? So we have to actually apply the permissions at the OU level, not the default level or root level, right? Because if we restrict or put policies at the root level or default domain, then it will actually apply to staff, students, and everyone. So we don't want that. So here in the default domain policy, what you have is some common policies which will apply to all the users in the domain, right? So common like for example password complexity. So password should be complex. Password should be minimum 8 characters. Then we can put things like to lock the account after 3 invalid attempts, right? Then we can change the locking duration also. So those we can have some kind of common rules for everyone, right? Then we can customize to at the OU level we can customize and maybe change those values, right? But here it should be since we are applying to everyone, so it should be some minimal kind of policies that we apply here, right? So we will apply at the OU level in detail. So for example, like for students, we might have to put more permissions or restrictions. To staff, we don't need a lot of restrictions because they should be given more permission, right? To do their to perform their tasks. So students, we might have to give a lot of restrictions, to make sure that they don't do anything mischievous, right? So here I can just check if I go to details. Yeah, so it will show me some details about this policy. So this is currently enabled, right? So I can change the settings also. If I select all settings disabled, then this policy will be disabled until I enable it, right? Or I can put computer configuration only disabled or user configuration. So those options are there. Then settings. So that means it will show me what are the current settings. I showed you this last time also. So these are actually the policies which are already applied. Right, so it will show me the path also. So in computer configuration, yeah, it's enabled. So in policies, Windows settings, security settings, then account policy section, these and values, these have been enabled and with these values. Right, so the password complexity requirements are there, enabled. Then account lockout is not actually enabled, right? So there are some other things which are there. Right. So these are the currently settings which have been applied. If I want to change any of this or if I want to add additional settings to the default domain policy, I have to actually edit it. So you can see this icon here, which shows this is a policy, right? These are containers. These are the OUs which are there in Active Directory. Can you remember? Domain controllers, S1 lab, and students. So yeah, let me show you. Yeah, so you see the OUs you put here are only shown in the group policy, right? So that is why we create OUs for separate policy management. So the other folders are not shown here. Only the OUs are shown here. So if I, yeah, so I can have a separate S1 lab policy for the lab. And then students, can you see now each OU or sub OU that I can open here. And then let's say for the B1 students, I need to give, specific group policies. So yeah, so here then I have to create GPO, that is a group policy object, and then I can customize according to the requirement. So then those will be applied to these B1 users only. Right? Then B2 again I can create a separate one. So you saw what was in the default one, right? Yeah, so these are the ones. Now I think I created this last day. Right. So currently there is nothing there. So in the lab, only the default will apply at the moment, right? So I can right click this and I can edit. Right. So we have two sections here: computer configuration and user configuration, right? Then, so actually to the computers. So this is for the lab, right? The computer, all the computers will be inside this OU in this lab. So I have to actually change or give the policies under this computer configuration, right? So that will apply to the computers. So the user configuration actually putting anything, changing anything there is of no use if students or anyone is using the domain accounts, right? Because this user configuration will only apply to the local users of the computers in the lab, right? So usually if we have a domain, then we will be using the domain accounts, right? Mainly people will be using domain accounts because it's difficult to manage local accounts in a lab. If you have 30-40 computers, you cannot create user accounts, local user accounts in all of those computers. It's very difficult, right? Because we have to access um, those computers separately, and then you have to create the accounts, right? So domain account, you don't have to do that. Just create account with the domain, and then anyone can log in to any of the computers in the domain. Yeah, so if you want to, so in the lab, uh, yeah, so actually it should be administrative template. Okay, stick Windows components. Yeah, so for example, if you don't want to allow any window animations, right? So yeah, so currently it's not configured, this policy, right? So if we enable this, so there's a description, right? This policy setting controls the appearance of windows animations. Yeah, so animations means when you minimize or maximize, you get a like animation showing you that the window is getting smaller or bigger, right? So if you disable this animation, when you minimize the window, it will just disappear, right? It will not show you that the window is getting smaller or whatever. Yeah, let me minimize one of these windows. Yeah, you don't. It's a bit slow, so yeah, maybe Windows animations is disabled. Yeah, I think it's not there. Yeah, see, when I move the window, it's just a rectangle. Yeah, if you have Windows animations enabled, when you move the window, the window will move when I'm doing this, right? So currently it's disabled. So this is what will happen. So that will improve actually the speed, right? When I disable Windows animation, it will increase the speed of the computer because it does not take any processing, right? Just to you know since there are no animations, it speeds up the computer, right? So if I want to make sure that the lab computers, maybe to increase the performance, I decided to enable this. So then, yeah, so if you enable this policy, Windows animations are turned off. So if you disable or do not configure, so currently it was not configured, then Windows animations are by default on, right? So this policy requires a log off, right? So if I put this policy when the user is currently logged in, it will not disable the animations, right? The user has to log off and then log in again. So yeah, so currently it's enabled, and yeah, so various things I can do here. Okay, Windows logon options. So there are a lot of options here, right? Yeah. So these automatic updates. If I want, I can configure the automatic updates. So that no one can change in the computer. If I put the policy here, right? So if I enable this automatic updates Windows, right? And here, okay, if I put auto download and schedule, so it will automatically download the updates. And when you go to Windows updates, you can actually change these settings, right? When you log in as administrator in that client computer. So if I enable a policy like this, um, so when even the admin, if they open the Windows update properties in that computer, they cannot change anything. It's disabled, right? Because I have put a policy here. So I can put, yeah, to install updates every day, and I can give a time, right? Maybe let's say in the morning 8. Yeah, so if I click this, so it will be installed only during this time. Automatic maintenance. Okay, so yeah, here it explains what is this automatic maintenance. Windows 8 and later, you can set up updates to install during automatic maintenance instead of the specified schedule. So this will actually install updates when the computer is not in use. And yeah, it will not do it if the computer is running on battery power. That means if it is a laptop, then it will not do the update, right? Right. So if you put automatic maintenance, that is what will happen. Only if the computer is idle, no one is using it, it will automatically install and restart if needed. So I can put that right. So like that, I can put various policies. So I have enabled it, others are not configured. Now if I close this, okay, right. So I had to refresh. So now you see it shows me whatever the changes I have done. Now it does not show the default ones, right? The default ones also apply here. So that is this one. So these by default they will apply to every container object here. So this one will be in additional to those default policies, right? So just by clicking a GPO, this is a group policy object, I can just have a summary of what settings are configured. Then if I need to change any of this, or I need to add some additional things, or I need to remove some things here, I can again right click and edit and do that. So this is how. So these are the computers. Then for the users, I have to separately give policies for the user configuration, right? Okay, so that is basically the group policies, right? So yeah, so the default will apply to all the users. So you have to put policies which you can apply to every user, right? So some policies you should not put as the default because it will apply to everyone, right? So some restrictions. So there are different kinds of users which should have different kinds of permissions. So we have to put the policies at their level, not the default or root level, right? So things like password or user count policies, those are usually common to everyone. So we can put those as the uh, default root policies or domain policies, right? Okay, so what are these leaf objects? So they don't contain other objects, and usually, yeah. So leaf objects are the what objects which cannot contain another set of objects, right? So these are the ones which are not containers. So for example, security account, network resource, GPO. So it cannot contain any other objects, right? So these are the ones which are the, you can say, if you take a tree, those are the ones in which it ends, right? The leaf of a tree, that is where it ends. So we cannot branch a leaf, right? That is the end of the, if we can say, the tree structure. So the leaf is the end of that structure, right? So it will be a count or yeah, maybe a folder share or group policy object, right? So that we call leaf objects. So contain objects, I showed you earlier. It can be a OU, it can be a folder or a group. So they can contain other objects, right? But these cannot contain other objects. Yeah, so security account objects are, user objects, group objects, and computer objects, right? So network resources means servers, that means just normal servers, right? Then domain controllers, so servers which have the role as a domain controller. Then file shares, printers. Right. So this is what I explained earlier. So user account object contains information such as group membership, account restriction, profile path. Yeah, so user account object is this. I think I created a user. mm, did I delete it? Okay, here's it. So this is a user account object, right? So this is a leaf object, right? I cannot have anything inside this object, right? Not like this OUs and folders. So if you take this, the properties, you see all these are attributes which I showed you earlier, right? First name, initial, last name, display name, description, office. So there are a lot of, here can you see, attributes. Here you have user logon name, then you have some account options, then account expiry. These are all attributes, right? Then you have profile path, then telephone numbers, what is the job, department, company, some remote control permission. Then you have, this is where this user object belongs to which groups, or which groups, right? So here actually this user only belongs to the domain user group, which is the minimum security level, right? Then dial-in options. So this is what I showed here. See, account restrictions, profile path, dial-in permission, group membership. So user account object can have all these information. So authentication. This confirms the user's identity. So the account is then assigned permissions and rights. Yeah. So this I explained earlier, right? Authentication. This is what happens when you type the username and password, and the server. This is how the server knows for sure that you are the correct user by authentication, right? If you type in the correct username and password, okay, then the server accepts you as the authentic user. Right. Then we have local user accounts and domain user accounts. So I explained that earlier in detail. So local user account authorized to access resources only on that computer. If you take a client computer by using the local user account, you can only access the local computer whatever features, right? Then if you use a domain account, so it gives a single logon for users to access all users in the domain. So local user account you will be able to access that computer's resources only, right? That particular computer's hard disk, right? And whatever in that computer. So you cannot access anything in another computer. But if you are using a domain account, then when you log in, you will have all the domain resources like network drives, or whatever your home drive or whatever, which is a network resource, which is not there in the local computer. So that is mainly the difference. So if you use this local, then you can only the details which are in the hard disk computer only, right? right? Now, if you are using a main account, right, then you can use whatever the maybe your drive, which is the net server drive. Uh, so you can access in from any computer, right? If you are using a domain account, you can actually access the drive from any computer. Right? If you're using the local login, you can access only the resources of your computer. So let's say if you log in PC1 and save some file, not access that login to another computer, local account, right? So this will have some other file. So these you cannot unless you log into the same computer. So this is using the local username and password, right? So anything that you save in your server or tech drive, so this can be actually any computer which is in the domain, right? You log in with your username and password in the domain, then you will have your network drive with the whatever the files you save, right? So if you log locally, you can only access local, right? You cannot access any network shares or domain files or whatever. Right. So Windows creates two built-in accounts, administrator and guest. So this is there in the server as well as your computer also. I think if you check your username and uh, if you try to add a new user, right? If you go to that user and application management tool, right? Then you'll be able to see the administrator and guest is usually there. I'm not sure about the home version. Administrator is definitely there. Um, guest, I'm not sure whether guest, I think it should be there. But it might be different. So in the home version, usually you don't get the tool to manage users and say, right? So let me show you in the server. Let me show you that in Malta. Local users and groups are not there because now this is a domain. So if you open computer management, this local users and groups, right? So this tool you can actually do some advanced or set some advanced properties of the users that you create, right? The home version does not have this. The professional version only has this, I think. In the home version you have only the graphical, you get only the graphical page from the control panel just to create the users, right? You don't need advanced, you don't get this local users and groups tool. Groups. So if you create a group, then it's a collection of users. Just applies whatever the purpose to the group, and then it will apply to all the users, right? Okay. So permission define which resources users can access and what level of access they. So you can put whatever permissions to the group in right. Specifies what actions user can perform on a computer or network. So you can give certain rights, like to maybe create users or down. So those kind of rights are available where we can assign group those kinds of rights, and then all of the users will actually get those rights, right? So groups are used to assign member permission and rights. Yeah, so it's more efficient than assigning permissions and rights to each user separately. Yeah, so rather than assigning the permissions and rights to every other each and every user, you just create a group and then put the permissions to the group, right? And then put those users to the group. That is the easiest way. Yeah, so these are the properties of a user account. So so there are these groups which are already there. Can you see? So domain user is the default group where every user created will be added to this group, right? So every guest created in domain will be going to this domain guest group, right? So domain admins are administrators which are managing the domains. So only the people who will be managing the domains, or this is a like a higher kind of permission. So this will be given to only the a limited number of people, right? Then you have these DNS admins and so on, and schema admins, right? It's also kind of higher kind of security which you give to a restricted number of users. So computer is an object that is a domain controller or domain member. Right. So this computer object, either it can be a domain controller or a domain member, which is not a domain controller, right? So domain member means it might be just a client computer in the lab, or maybe just a server. So you can add just a server as a domain member, right? And yeah, the server will have, so anyone with a domain account can log into the server. So these computer object accounts are used to identify, authenticate, and manage computers in the domain, right? So when a computer or server is added to the domain, right? So you get the usernames and passwords from those computers when they when log in, right? So you see these computer account objects. So the server will make sure that those are the uh, correct objects which these permissions can be given. You have the server in the client computer, right? It is added to the domain. So so when the client is added to the domain, so there will be some kind of computer object which relates to this. So let's say this is okay. So there will be some kind of object which is actually related to this one. So whenever someone tries to log in from here, so types the username and password, right? So that will be sent here to authenticate, right? So the server knows, okay, this authentication is coming from this one. So okay, I know this person because it has been added to the domain, and so so this can identify that the request is coming from authenticated device or client, right? Now, if someone, say someone who is not in the domain is somehow okay, so the server does not have an identification of this, right? Let's say this is a laptop. So this is trying to communicate with the server, right? And then sending some email authentication. Right. Now this is not been added to the domain and the domain server knows, okay, I don't have an object. So this is not authenticate. Someone is trying to acquire access to system server. So it will not allow any of those things, right? So it will only, you know, the username and some kind of request is coming from another client or machine or laptop. So it will check whether it's already there in the to the domain, and if the subject is there, then it will communicate. Right? If the object is not there, if the request comes from some object which is not recorded here, it will not process in use, right? It will just discard. Say you added the computer client to domain, and so it has a computer object, that name, computer name. So if you delete that object from the active directory, right, uh, then that client computer is not actually in the domain, right? If you delete, so then if someone tries to log in from that client machine to the domain, it won't work, right? So then you will have to actually remove it. So in the client computer, you have to go and you have to remove it from the domain and then again add it to the domain, right? So then the compute object will be properly updated in the server, and then you can use it, right? So otherwise, if you just delete the object, compute object from the domain server, so the settings which are there in the client, right, the configuration, those will be still there. It will not be removed, right? So if you check the settings in the configuration in the client computer, it says it's added to the domain. But actually in the domain, you don't have that compute object available because it has been deleted, right? So then you have to actually remove that client computer from the domain and then add it again. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Um, Yeah, so computer accounts are created automatically when it is installed on the server. Yeah, so actually, these computer accounts are created when they are added to the domain, right? So the computer accounts object's name must match the name of the computer, right? So the name of the computer object, it should be the same as the computer name, right? If you change the computer name later, then you have a problem again. So it will not be connected to the domain server. Then you have to remove the computer from the domain and then add again, because the computer name should match with the object in the domain. So let me see if I can show. So actually I don't have a computer to add. Let's see if I can show you an image. So here is a list of there are two domain controllers added to the domain. So when you go main controller or you can see those. So okay, this is how you see the computers. Now by default, so these are the names of the computers, right? WKS001. Those are the um, names given to the computers. I think you know where to change the computer name, right? If you get the properties, so let me show you. So in Windows 10, just go to Windows settings by pressing Windows I, and then go to update and security. No, it's wait, let me find out and show you. Okay, in the Windows settings, just press Windows I, and then in the system, get the about. Yeah, so let me share this. So from home, I went to system and then about, right? Yeah, so rename this PC. Using this, you can actually change the name of your computer, right? Or you can here you rename this PC Advanced. That is where you can change the name of your computer, right? So when you the computers in the labs, you have to actually go there and manually change the names. So these are the names given to the computers in labs. So usually we give some kind of letters and then a number. If you have 30 computers in the lab, then you have 1 to 30, right? If you have 100, then 1 to 100, like that. So usually we give names like that, and the IPs also we assign the same. The computer name is 1, then the IP will be 1. So usually we do that to because it's easy to manage. Now here, can you see now these computers? When you edit the domain, it will automatically come to this computers folder, right? So when you it's 1, 2, 3, these three are added to the domain. These three will initially will be there in the computers folder, right? But for management purposes, so you can have a separate groups or OUs like this, and then you can move it to one of these groups or user groups, right? So this is what has been done. So those from the computers, they have been moved to this OU. Then you can separate policies to this OU so that those will be applied to those client domain computers, right? As I showed you in group policy, it will show only the OUs which are there. It does not show this computers folder, right? So you have to have an OU to separately apply policies. Okay, here is. So this is so whenever you add a computer to the domain, right? Domain controller, when you open Active Directory and for users and computers, in the computers folder, you have all the computers you have added to the domain like this. Now can you see? So this is showing the name, actually the name of those computers, right? So you rename those computers to whatever the name you want, and then you can add to the domain, right? So that same name will be shown here. Now, if you change the name of the computer after adding to the domain, then you will have a problem, right? The name here shows one thing, and there in the computer it's a different thing. So then it will not work, right? Because when you add to the domain, that name is actually added here, right? So when you change it, it will not automatically update here. So you will have to again remove it the domain and add it if you change the name of the computer, right? So you can create OUs here, and then you can drag this to those folders to easily manage. Right. So some other Leaf objects that are created are the contact, printer, shared folder. Contact is just you are just creating some user. It's not a login. It's just a person who is working at the company, but you just actually use a domain account, right? Just to keep some details. So when you create those options are there. Okay, again this has locked. Let me show you now. So when you right click and create, go to new. Yeah. So you can create user is normal account user. This contact is just some information. It's not a actual login, right? So full name will be automatically created, and then I can have the display name. Right. Now it says contact, right? See, just some information. It's not part of the any group also, right? Now, now this is a user, right? Now check the properties of this. See, a lot of properties. So address, account. So this was not there in that contact, right? So this is a login, username and password. Everything is here, right? So this is the logon username to the domain, right? Then there are profile information. So this telephone and those things were there in that contact as well. But yes, so member of domain users. So that person was not a member of anything because that is not a login account, right? That is just having the person's details. Okay, it's just a contact. See, so yeah, if you want, you can add here, but uh, just for management purpose. Oh no, wait, here you don't actually need to add, right? Because this is not a user account. Just some information about some person, right? So this is there so that you can when you enter these things later you can if you want to check the details of this person like the address, telephone number, some other information, right? You can just double click and see just to keep information, not a login, right? Right. So then you can add a printer, shared printer. Then you can put a shared folder, right? So that means shared folder means that folder is in the server and it's a network share, so it can be accessed by anyone, which we give permission, right? So when they log into using a domain account, so we can make sure that that person can access the shared folder, right? Okay, so let's say you have hundreds, thousands of users in this Active Directory, right? So let's say someone comes to you and says, okay, I forgot my password. So I want to change it or reset it. Now you cannot go one by one and it will take a long time, right? If you have, let's say, thousands of users. So this is a simple one. If I have a lot of OUs here, right? Then I cannot go one by one and find it. So there is a search function which is available. You have to first click, yeah, better to click the domain, or if you know uh, that user account is in one of these OUs, you can click there and yeah. So find users, contacts, or groups in. So I have currently selected students OU, so it is search in this. If I want, I can select in this entire domain, right? Maybe it's in another OU or somewhere else, right? So maybe I need to search in the whole domain. Or entire directory means in the entire forest, right? If there are several domains available. Now I created the user called test. Right, I found it. So I can't remember where I put it, so I just do a search. So I remember that it was in this OU, but I don't know where, right? So maybe so there are subfolders, so it might be difficult to find manually. So now I can, if I want, I can change any property. Let's say the user account is locked and he has come to unlock. So then I select this and apply. Then his account will unlock. Or I can right click. If I want to disable the account, I can disable it here, or I can reset the password. So usually students come to reset the password to the administrator. So this is how it's usually done, right? So you have to know the username. Otherwise, you won't be able to search. Yeah. Okay, there's a. Okay, so you can actually search from these other details also. Do an advanced search, right? If the user does not know his username, right? Forgotten his username also, so maybe you can search from the first name or address or like that. That is also possible. You have to go to the advanced search, right? Otherwise here you have to give the if I type something which is not there, definitely I cannot find. Okay, it shows. Okay, it actually shows even if I don't type it fully. Yeah. So if I had 2 or 3 starting with TE, it will show me here. What if I searched here? Right, so it shows me everything with starting with TE. Okay, so that is how you usually do a search, right? When there are lots of accounts, you cannot easily find it. Right, so you can either search in a single domain or yeah, entire directory means if you have 2, 3 domains, you can search in all the domains. Right. So not all objects are available to all users. Depends on yeah. So this depends on the permission level that you have, right? Um, let's say you are an administrator who has been given only to maybe the students or you, right? You don't have access to the others. Then when you search, you will actually be able to search the uh, places which you have been given permission, right? Others you cannot search. Right. So small organizations will focus on OUs, and that's yeah. So mainly on OUs, right? Then larger will require yeah. They might need several domains, trees, and few forests. So this I explained earlier, right? So large organizations, they might have sub companies, right? So those might be, different in nature. So we'll have to have separate domains or trees or separate forests, right? So the very first domain controller, yeah, it creates also, it creates more than a new domain. Yes. So because we have to create a forest, then it creates a new domain, and then it creates a new tree also, right? So because when you create a domain, that means it's a new tree, right? Right. So yeah. So later maybe you might need to add, child domains to the tree, or you might need to create separate domains, that is new trees, or you might need to create separate forests and add sites also. Right. So replication happens when there are two or more servers, domain servers in the same domain, right? Now this I explained this a bit earlier also. So this is a process of maintaining consistent database information, and the database is distributed, right? So intra-site replication means so that means I showed you earlier, right? So the domain servers are in the same location or site. Intra-site means internally in the site, right? So that is local. So that replication is not an issue since bandwidth is there. So uh, it will be properly replicated, right? I mean the details will be synced in both those or both all the servers available properly. Now this inter-site replication, that is the other server is in another location or site, right? Now let's say if it is something like, if you take the university, let's say it's these two servers are in two buildings, then also it's not much of a big issue because it's inside, anyway it's inside the university, right? So although different buildings, the network, so the network should be properly set up also, then it's not a that much of a big issue, but it might be slower than local replication, right? And then if the link breaks due to power cuts or whatever, uh, so sometimes it might not be properly replicated, or there might be corruptions and so on, right? So local replication is that will happen most probably properly, right? But the others might not happen. So intersite means maybe in maybe different building, or maybe in some other location, right? Maybe some other town, or maybe yeah, maybe another country, right? It depends on the organizations, because there are multinational companies where you might have these domain servers in several countries, right? Then there is this okay, yeah, multi-master replication is there, used by AD for replacing AD objects. So this is used to for the replication technology, right? It's used to replacing objects which are there in the AD. Then we have this KCC, knowledge consistency checker, right? So it will run on all the domain controllers and it will check for the consistency of the databases. If there is anything wrong, if it is anything corrupted, right? So this will run all the time in the domain controllers and check if the replication has properly happened, right? And it will actually okay. So it defines the domain controller path and the AD changes flow and ensures no more than 3 hops exist between any two DCs. Right. So this will make sure that replication will happen in all of the domain controllers available in the domain. Right. So it will do the proper calculation, analyze, and then the replication process it will properly uh, allocate so that it happens properly without any issues, right? But sometimes there may be issues. Then most probably there will be warnings, especially in the event logs. That is why you have to check the event logs, right? So it's better to fix some kind of error. Uh, the more sooner the better, right? More sooner you fix the error, the better. Because if you uh, don't notice some maybe some small errors, it might lead to larger or complex ones, right? So the sooner you see the error, the sooner you fix it, then there it should be okay. So even I have experience with this kind of where the active directory is not in sync and there are errors, right? So actually there are tools available in server, and there is a lot of help also available where you can so you have to run some commands and then you can fix those things, right? So but we have to do it in a proper way so that you don't make the situation more complex or worse, right? So if you do it in a proper way, then you can get it fixed. So this replication happens in the network, right? So any so there can be lots of issues. Usually it happens smoothly, but due to there might be issues. So usually whatever changes, so whatever changes you do here will automatically go here, and whatever you do here will automatically replicate here. This process happens usually it happens without any errors, right? But sometimes due to maybe let's say while if there was a change, and yeah, while it was replicating the change to this, right? So halfway before completing, something happened. Maybe this went down, right? So it can happen, right? Um, so yeah, in that case, this. Uh, so when the connection is data connection is okay, right? Okay, so this has been interrupted, right? So it's halfway done, right? So not completely. So actually we have to, yeah, we cannot. Sorry. Yeah, the change was applied here, but it did not copy here, right? Only halfway done. So you have to again do this. So when the connection comes up, right now either you have to remove this completely and do it. So whatever halfly done, you have to either remove everything and do it properly, or so. Yeah, sometimes it might be difficult, right? Then so there may be errors, right? Then okay, now you can see here this change is not applied here. That means not properly replicated, right? So it might try to do it, but for some reasons, if it does not go okay, right? If it fails, then definitely it will be there in the event logs. This replication happens every day, right? So it will be there in the event logs as warnings. So uh, just by looking at it, then when you get to know that there is something wrong, then there are tools, right? So there are tools to make this okay, right? So using those tools, you can correct this. But you have to make sure that you notice it early so that you can fix it easily, right? Otherwise, as time goes by, if there might be small errors, then that might lead to complex ones, and then it will be difficult to fix if the Active Directory gets corrupted for some reason, right? So yeah, so you get the picture, right? So can you see now there's a lot of complex processes going on in this Active Directory, right? So as you can see, there is a lot of complex things happening underneath, right? This Active Directory, right? There's a lot of security there, right? So so I know about this because I have actually come across these errors in the AD, the replication, right? In several domains. So so there are a lot of processes going on to make sure that this functions smoothly. So when there are application errors, the changes you do will not be copied to the other side, and it's difficult to maintain the system, right? So you have to fix as soon as possible. Right. So directory partition. So this is so actually this Active Directory is saved in files, right, in the server. So this directory partition is actually part of the Active Directory database, right? So there are 5 directory partition types. One is domain directory partition, which contains objects in the domain, user groups, computers, OUs, and things like that. Then there is the schema directory partition, right? This is the top level information or map of information needed to define AD object and attribute. So this contains the AD objects, that means user accounts, groups, and those computer accounts, those kinds of things, right? Printer object. Those information are there in this partition. Then there's a global catalog partition, uh, which has a partial replica of all objects in the forest. So it has actually a copy of all objects in the forest, right? Then there's application directory partition, which is used by application and services to hold some information about those applications. Then there's a configuration partition, which stores the configuration information that will affect the entire forest. Right, now these partitions, so they will be stored in files, right? So if any of these become corrupted, then we have an issue, right? So So most probably, the primary domain controller, or the one which will be having most of these partitions, right? You should make sure that the server has, if you are, installing a new server, so it's better to have that new server as the primary rather than an old server, right? Because your old server, it might fail, or a hard disk might fail. So if these files become corrupted for some reason, then it will be difficult to recover, right? And then it will be some downtime also for the users, right? If something fails. So it's better, when you are uh, putting up a new server, so it's better to, transfer whatever you have in your old server to the new server and make that the primary one, so that it will be more reliable, right? So, if these things get corrupted, or, if the server doesn't stops working, you will have a lot of problems. Especially, I told you about the operation master, right? So this operation master roles, usually it will be given to one server. You can have in several servers if you want, but so usually the first domain controller will have all the operation master roles, right? By default. So if this goes down, then you might, although you have backup uh, servers, so you won't be able to do certain things like uh, change the schema, or change some domain functional levels, or those sort of things you will not be able to do without an operations master, right? So if the operations master suddenly becomes not working, then you have a problem. So it's better to give the role to some server which is reliable, and most probably a new server, right? Then you won't have much of problems. Because if the operations master server for some reason goes down or not working, right, and you cannot recover it, uh, then so actually we can promote another one, or we can assign the role to another server, but that will be a bit difficult because uh, the original server is not there, offline, right? So we have to actually forcefully remove uh, the master from other server configurations, and yeah, so it's a bit difficult, right? uh, if the master server is online, then we can transfer the role to another server, but if it is offline, then uh, there is a way, but it's difficult and time consuming, right? So we have to forcefully remove all the master roles, uh, and then apply to a new one, right? Okay, so I had to actually do that one time, and it was time consuming, right? So it's better if you can have a proper server for this, so that you don't have to waste time on that, right? Okay, right. So yeah, transferring rows can be done, but only if it is online. If it goes offline, then the process will not be easy, right? You have to. There are tools, so you have to forcefully remove the rows and do things like that. Right. So yeah. So several operations in a forest require having a single domain controller. Yes. So when you have more than one domain controller in a network, so the functions, higher functions, they will be assigned to one server, so that it will be easy to manage, right? The domain controllers. Otherwise, yeah, I think I explained this the other day, right? So I think it's clear the purpose of having operations master roles given to a server. Yeah, these are the roles, main roles which are given to the that single server, right? Schema master, infrastructure master, domain naming, RID, and PDC. That is primary domain controller, emulator master. So these roles are usually given to the very first server that we create in the domain, right? So this server with the master operation roles will be the main person who will be managing mainly the changes done to this, the schema, infrastructure, and things like that. These roles, right? So any change you do in the other servers, they will first apply to this master server. Then from there onwards, it will distribute to the child servers. I explained this also last time, right? Right. So when you are removing domain controllers from a forest, right? Sometimes you may have to remove it. Be careful that these roles are not removed from the network. Yeah. So if you remove a domain controller which has all these roles, right? Then you will not have any operations master in your network. Then also the same problem, right? Like I explained, if the server was suddenly not working, the master server, uh, then you can't transfer the roles also, right? Because it's not working. So it's offline. So it needs to be online to transfer the roles to another server. So you should not remove this domain controller from the domain, right? Without transferring it to another server. If you accidentally remove it, then recovering it takes time, right? So you have to manually use some tools, and then as I said, you have to forcefully remove these roles from the configuration, and sometimes things may go wrong, right? When you are doing forcefully doing things, because they have Microsoft has made in such a way so that it's things will happen smoothly if you do it the proper way. But forcefully removing, sometimes it might go wrong. Okay, so yeah, so these are the we call them the flexible single master operation, FSMO roles. Right. So yeah, I think I showed you in the server also, right? This yeah, you right click the domain and you get the operation masters. Yeah. So the mainly these things you can see. So here currently operation master is this server. So I can, yeah. So since there are no other servers available, it does not. I cannot do that, right? So there are actually two other roles apart from this. So that has to be done from, yeah, not from this tool, right? There are two other roles which has to be changed by another tool. Yeah, there are only three: RID, PDC, and infrastructure. RID, PDC, and infrastructure. Yeah, so the schema and domain naming, the master should be changed using another tool. Okay, so Yeah, so I think we will conclude for today. Let's see the other tool. I think it's this domains and trust. Yeah, so domain functional level, you cannot. No, it's not that tool. It must be this one. No, it's yeah. There was another tool which is used to change the other two settings. The operation master roles, right? Okay, so any questions? So uh, you can find an this evaluation, this Windows Server images are there, right? So you don't. So actually, I'm using one of them. So they give 180 days or something. Yeah, see. So this is just for testing purpose, right? So they give. Um, so you can download an evaluation version Windows Server, and then you can create a virtual machine and then just check this out, right? So yeah, I think installation and everything I showed you last week, how to install and everything, and then I showed you how to add it to the domain, right? So those actually these information are there in the internet also, right? You can search how to install, and they give it uh, by image, right? The point where you click next, they show everything there. So it's not difficult to Windows. You have a lot of help. So if you don't know, you can usually in the internet there are a lot of help available. So yeah, so now to add a computer to domain, I actually have another virtual machine running. So adding to a domain is not a big thing. It's just I think I showed you, right? In the properties, just change what you have is the work group. Just change that to add to the domain. That's all you have to do in the normal client computer, right? Then everything is done from the server. Okay, so then we will stop. There are no questions.
No, sir.
Okay, then we will conclude for the day. Okay, then see you next on Friday.